content, man. Let's get into the Avowed video. This is from Laura Fryer. If you guys don't know who Laura Fryer is, she was, or at some point was a developer on Gears of War. And she made a couple of videos that were pretty good to go over. And this is going to be another one. It's a 10-minute video. This one's called Is Avowed a Success? And that's literally all it's called. I thought that sounded interesting. I wanted to jump into it. I believe Smash JT went over this video as well, and he said it was good. So let's give her a shot. Let's see what Laura Fryer has to say. You guys sent this over to me. Let's react to it. Let's check it out. Let's see what this is about. Here we go.
If you're looking for a video about Avowed being a smashing success, this isn't the video for you. After looking at their first weekend of Steam sale,
I want you guys to pay attention to her background, okay? Because we have all come to the conclusion that Laura Fryer is in the same sex shack as Smash JT. So just pay attention to the background and to the setting. It's awfully similar.
Success. This isn't the video for you. After looking at their first weekend of Steam sales, it is clear that they have not gotten a lot of engagement. Dragon Age Veilguard had more engagement, and sadly, we know how the story ended.
But let's not dwell on unpleasant matters.
It's definitely very concerning when your game doesn't do well, but I see a big difference between these two titles and their teams. You see, Obsidian is already working on Outer Worlds 2, and they've gotten the band back together again, the original creators, to make it happen.
Part 2. And like all good sequels, we've included everything that should have been in the first game. More action.
The success or failure of Avowed won't crush them.
Are you guys thinking that Outer Worlds 2 is going to be more successful than Avowed? I wonder how many people are thinking. Do you think that Avowed is going to hinder the potential outcome of Outer Worlds 2? I feel like that's an interesting question to ask. You know, because Outer Worlds 1 did better than what Avowed is doing. Outer Worlds 1 did better than what Avowed is doing. So I gotta imagine that Outer Worlds 2 will probably do better. I hope anyway. If Outer Worlds 2 does not do decently better than Outer Worlds 1, bro, that is not good. That is not good. So I wonder if Avowed is gonna put like a bad taste in people's mouth. But I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I just figured I would ask the chat, but I see your responses. I see all your responses.
And I think it's possible that this is the beginning of a golden age for Obsidian. For context, Avowed shipped on February 18th, and most reviewers agree that it's okay.
How the fuck is this a golden age for Obsidian? What?
Average rating is due to expectations. Fans of Obsidian wanted and expected more from them. If you haven't played, reviews of the game are critical of the writing, characters, and art style, but generally think the combat is solid. And this is good news because it gives the team something to build on. Here's what Fergus, their studio head, had to say when asked if Avowed would get a sequel.
So I guess there's always a billion things that we're thinking about as it relates to what makes sense next. I mean, even from the standpoint of like we evaluate and we look at, hey, what we know with Avowed is we've created a really, really great action.
Bro, look at this guy in the bottom corner, bro. This guy is like a fucking bobblehead. How is your body so small and your head so massive? How is that even possible? Like, what was God high as fuck when he made your dimensions? What the hell is going on at this bottom right of the screen, bro?
Combat system, right? So what else could that apply to that could interest us more or differently?
Keep in mind, this interview was the day after they shipped. They weren't getting a lot of numbers at that point, but even then he could tell what the strengths were of the game. Also, the way he framed his answer to the question tells me that he's not committed to a sequel. This could be because he's hoping it will do well, or it could be because he's made a few games and knows exactly where it's going to land. My point is that he clearly understands the reality of his game.
So I feel like Obsidian goes for the real long haul. Obsidian plays the long strategy, which is we're not going for banger successes right off the gate. We are going for the slow burn kind of success where we have to sell XYZ amount of copies over like 5 to 10 years for the game to be considered a success. That's what I feel like they go for, because that's kind of what happened with Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds did not bang at the beginning. They didn't make a ton of money, but through enough discounts, through enough sales, they were able to consider it a success after a few years of doing that. But it's a real slow burn to get to that point. And now with Avowed had about double the budget of the first Outer Worlds game. So we're talking $80 to $100 million. It's going to be a really slow burn. You're going to have to do a lot of sales to do that. See, the thing is that strategy could work as long as your budget remains low. But if your budget keeps going up to the level that it did with Avowed and it keeps going higher and higher, then that slow burn strategy is not going to work as well. And if it does, it's going to take a longer and longer time for it to get you, to the break-even point.
So why did they ship the game knowing that it probably wasn't going to be a hit? Well, maybe that's because that wasn't the goal. After shipping Gears of War 2, I went to WB Games and we bought Snowblind Studios. They had some very talented people, but they hadn't shipped on a next-gen console. When I started working with them, I asked WB management what they wanted out of Snowblind. What was their expectation for the team? You see, WB was growing really rapidly. They had to learn that making a movie was different than making a game, and they had to think about all these problems that you encounter when you do acquisitions. At the end of that conversation,
look at the difference in teams, goal. Man. I love when she shows the clips. I love when she shows the clips of what the teams looked like back then, because you just see nothing but dudes and fucking nerds, bro. Look at the nerds in this crowd. And this is why video games were so much better. Look at the fucking nerds, bro. Look at this chick. Look at this chick, bro. Look at this Asian guy. Nerd over here in the corner. Nerd over here. Bro, everybody, half the team got glasses on, bro. We need nerds back in gaming.
When you do acquisitions. At the end of that conversation, we had a simple goal. We needed to build a team that could ship a game on a next-gen console, and we had to survive the acquisition storm. And we did. We succeeded in building a team, and we shipped. And many of those team members moved to Shadow of Mordor, which was a hit. That said, War in the North failed financially and critically. It was not a success from that standpoint. Look, no game team starts out aspiring to make an okay game. Developers want to make something critically acclaimed, and they want to stand on the stage and receive all of the applause and industry accolades from their peers. They want to secure financial stability for their team, and then, after it's all over, they want to do it again. They want to make another game. Unfortunately, life happens. Things don't always go well. In fact, they almost never go perfectly in game development. That's just how it works. Even the best dreams can be dashed on the rocks of reality. Here's the thing. Obsidian is delivering. They delivered Avowed. They continue to ship. And being able to ship a game after being acquired by another company is a miracle all on its own. I've been on both sides of the acquisition party, and I can tell you it's tough on both teams. So I applaud the team at Obsidian for shipping. They should feel great about getting Avowed out the door. Also, given the current state of Xbox game studios, you can't take shipping for granted. It's a big deal. Xbox needs games on Game Pass. They have spent billions of dollars acquiring studios and
well, that we know. And this is like whenever we talk about Game Pass, I know, dude, I know people don't like when I talk about Game Pass. Trust me, I know. I see people, they get so fucking mad. They're like, Hypnotic hates Game Pass. I'm like, no, I don't fucking hate Game Pass. If you guys listen to me and you hear me out, you realize that I say Game Pass is fantastic for consumers. It's fantastic for consumers. For a low price, you get day one games. You never got to pay, the maximum price. And they will keep giving you games more and more and more. Now, you never own them, granted. And yeah, I paused on this creature. That was probably really bad. You never own them, number one. Actually, I didn't even get a chance to report on a story about the fact that Game Pass is removing some banger titles. Game Pass is about, I think in like a week, they're going to be removing some banger fucking titles from their service that people, that I think people will be upset about hearing that are leaving the service. But see, that's the problem with something like Game Pass. When you have Game Pass, you don't own anything. So when they take away a title, you can never play it again. And it sucks. It's not the first time they've done it, but it sucks, So when they do that, it just kind of reminds you that you don't own anything, right? And that's the problem. I think Yakuza is being taken off. A few of Yakuza games. How is that different from Steam? Well, because in the 20 years that I've had Steam, I've never lost a game. Quite simply, it's consumer trust, Yamato, right? So that's the problem. It's consumer trust. When you buy a game digitally on Steam, I have yet to lose one. And I have some retarded old fucking games on Steam. Whereas with Game Pass, it's just basically cycling out video games. Obviously at any point, if Steam goes under, I could lose everything. Of course, I know that. But you're talking about 20 years of service. That is 1/4 the average lifetime. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm just saying for me, it's never happened. So my personal experience is I'm fine. I know Steam has taken off like some shovelware games. I know Steam has taken off some like bullshit fucking titles that people were tricked into buying and then they end up taking it off or whatever. But that's basically it. Like Steam is earned my trust as a company for 20 years. Whereas Game Pass is going to cycle out games, which sucks, right? But the plus side to that is that you're only paying a small monthly fee. So that's the upside, right? You're not paying full price or anything like that. You're paying a small monthly fee. So anyway, keep the story going. So when it comes to Game Pass, the Game Pass is fantastic for consumers, but it is terrible for developers and it is terrible for most AAA games that have massive budgets that are never going to make their sales back because the game is available on Game Pass. There are very few examples of games being available on Game Pass that also became successes outside of Game Pass. There are definitely some, no doubt about it. But the majority of games that get put on Game Pass are used to basically feed the machine. They have to feed the machine of Game Pass. And Game Pass, its value has to be in how many games they have available to you day one when you subscribe to Game Pass. So that's really all it's for. And most of these studios are making games for Xbox studios, and they're making them just to be Game Pass machine feeders. That's all it is. They're literally just Game Pass feeders as a studio. But for a consumer, it's great.
Starting up new ones. And many of them are still burning through cash with no ship date in sight. For example, look at the Initiative Studio. They were started in 2018. They've had at least one major reset, and they still haven't shipped. They are located in Santa Monica, which means their costs are extremely high. So even if they do make it out the door, it will be incredibly difficult for them to earn back the money that was spent. It would need to be a monster hit. Then you have Undead Labs. They were acquired in 2018. They doubled in size and added multiple locations. Growth may make sense, but it also adds risk. Trying to work with remote teams and doubling in size is a huge challenge. You have to onboard all the people. They have to learn your culture. By the way, your culture's changing.
I thought it was a Klans meeting for a second. Holy shit. I saw white coats and no black people. I'm like, damn, it's a Klans meeting. Look at all these white people. Holy shit. And he got a weapon too? Fuck. We are screwed.
Because you were just acquired. Also, from reports in 2022, It sounds like Undead Labs has been struggling with their culture. We'll likely never know exactly what happened, but there were reports of mismanagement, bullying, and concerns from employees that the studio had embraced a patronage culture, that they were hiring only their friends in key positions. I've gone.
Why is it that every studio has some sort of like story about workplace bullying and toxic culture? It's almost as if these studios that were made by gamers are being ran by gamers, because God knows gamers are toxic. That's part of gaming culture. So I feel like that's not very surprising to know that as these studios were made by mostly young men and women that were gamers. I don't know. I just feel like that's just kind of the thing.
Gone through branding exercises before. Sometimes it can really help to bring the team together. But
actually, Will the Fans is right. It's not even just gaming, man. It's corporate culture as a whole. They always try to pretend like, oh, you got to be professional. Bro, most people are not professional. Most people wear their emotions on their sleeve, and they, you deal with jealousy, you deal with envy, you deal with all kinds of shit in the corporate setting or in the job setting. And you're going to have people that like each other, people that don't like each other, all kinds of fucking nonsense. It's just how it goes.
It takes a lot of time away.
I see we're at tier 2. We're going to finish the segment and then we're going to put the ears on. And then it's the road to tier 3. We might hit it today. Who knows?
The game. It may end up being the right choice and will speed up their development. But at this point, State of Decay 3 will have to be a massive success in order to make back its money. Those are just 2 examples of the many struggling studios at Xbox. When I look at that landscape, I would say Obsidian is doing pretty well. They survived acquisition and they shipped a game that is good enough for Game Pass. They also launched Grounded in 2020 and Pentiment in 2022. They know how to ship, and I would argue that it would be worth it for the other studios and Xbox management to take a look at Obsidian and figure out how to replicate what they're doing. Fergus has been making games for years. He's been in the trenches, and he's been at Obsidian since it started. He was one of the founders.
Do you have any questions for Fergus?
How did he like being my QA person on my first game I ever play?
I like to think Tim was working for me.
He also seems to take accountability for the studio.
I do find it interesting that the mindset of, well, if it's shipped, it's a success. I don't know. Like, is that just like a game development thing where it seems like they all have this mentality? Because Corin Bush over at Veilguard had the same mentality too. They were like, well, we released the game and we feel like that alone makes it a success for us. Like, what is this? That is such a bare bone mindset. I don't know. I understand game development's hard. Don't get me wrong. I get it. Bro, I can't get over this guy. Who the fuck is this guy? This guy looks like Hondo if Hondo became a fucking human. He looks like a bird. What is this guy? I don't know. It just feels weird to me, this whole like sentiment of, well, as long as it ships, it's fine.
Yeah, it's always a hard relationship between developers and publishers, right? Because there's a budget and I don't know. I hate to say what we do is hard because it's our job and it's our job. We're professionals and we need to go make games. And I think I never want to take it off our shoulders that we have responsibility for the state of our games when they came out. Like, we signed a contract. I signed a contract that said we would do this game for 9 hamburgers or 17 cheeseburgers or whatever the amount of money that they were. And we at the time felt we could do that. And maybe we ran into trouble or something else happened or staffing. It could be any number of things that caused us to not be able to deliver on time, right?
It's possible that sometime in the development of Avowed, he realized it wasn't going to be a monster hit, and he decided it was time to ship, to learn from the experience and build on it in the future. Without knowing what the goals were for the team, we don't know how Xbox is going to see this. But what we do know is that Obsidian is already working on Outer Worlds 2, and they're bringing back the band. They're bringing back Tim and Leonard to work on the game. The key thing for any game is their talent. You need talented people that work well together.
I met Leonard 26 years ago.
What was he like back then?
So if we're talking about Leonard and whoever the else the guy was, if we're talking about them in reference to, okay, bringing back the band, bringing back the team, right? So are we basically trying to admit that Patel, the woman who was in charge over at Avowed, not exactly the greatest? Can we come to that conclusion? Can we say that, and it be like a fair thing to say? You know what I mean? Because even if Laura is saying these guys are the talent, these guys, like, we're bringing the band together, that doesn't include her. He's baked. It's because I paused really bad. I don't know how I paused like this. I really don't. I paused really well. I don't know, but it's an interesting question. Patel is a first-time director. Oh, so this was her first time directing a title. That makes a lot of sense then, if that's the case. If that's true, that makes a lot of sense.
Pretty much like this. He hasn't aged much. I've aged horribly, and he looks exactly the same.
That is completely untrue.
When you're building a game, you need trust. And you can't just build that kind of relationship overnight. It takes time. Watching interviews with these two is magical because you can see they have a genuine, solid relationship. On top of that, they understand game development. For example, there are a lot of game developers today that think constraints on their design is a bad thing.
Me and Jason designed what the intro was going to be based off our constraints. I know we say this all the time in interviews, but like, constraints are really good because they make you be creative.
This team also understands the triangle.
Wait a second. Hold the fuck on. This guy right here on the right side, didn't he make a video that we reacted to at some point? Wait a second. Didn't he make a video saying that gamers don't know what they want? Am I right? Am I right on that? That's who this guy is. Yes, it is the same guy. That is definitely the same guy. Hold on. Let me see something. That's the same fucking guy. Gamers don't know what they want. Let me see. Oh, do devs know what gamers want? Yes, that's him. That's him. That's him. That is fucking him. Hold on. That is him. This is the video. This is the video right here. Hold on. Right here. Boom. Toma. Look. That's him. I knew I fucking recognized his ass. That is him. People in the chat like it's not. It is. That's the guy who made the video, do devs know what gamers want? That is him. Exactly. Everybody yelling at me, that's not him. Take the L. I still love you, but take the L. I don't got amnesia just yet. Motherfuckers. I got a decent memory. I knew I recognized him. We reacted to this ages ago. Damn, man. Wow. Things come full circle. Wow. Things come full circle. Look at that. Look at that. What do you know? That is incredible. All right, let's go back. We're almost done in this video. Here we go. Unbelievable.
They make you be creative.
This team also understands the triangle. They understand that making a game is an exercise in trade-offs.
The time constraints and the budget constraints.
Yeah, he's the OG creator of Fallout. So
a little challenging.
Makes sense.
You know, we are always wanting to put more into our games, more reactivity, more content, and we just have to really be cognizant of choices we're making.
And finally, they understand that making games is a long journey of learning.
Probably frightening to PR people for me to even say these words, but we're still learning a lot about how we make games.
You never quite get there. You always think you could do better. And that is one of the keys to being successful. I think Outer Worlds 2 has an opportunity to be a big success for Xbox, I hope that it does very well, and I hope that Xbox leadership can see what I'm seeing with Obsidian, that Xbox will take a hard look at their struggling studios and see what they can learn from Obsidian. Making a successful game is building a system and a team, and then iterating on every game you ship. But you can't do that if you're not shipping. Xbox has everything they need to be successful. They have a fantastic portfolio of games. They have a lot of different people working on those games.
I really do think that Laura Fryer, listen, I love her videos. She really is pretty fair all around with what she says. But I do think she has the participation trophy mentality. I really do. As much as I love what she says, I really genuinely do think that she has that mindset, which is as long as we ship it, it's okay, guys. We did what most people can't do. We shipped the game. That's got to count for something, right? I just feel like she has that kind of mentality, almost to a fault, because you could tell just in how she constantly talks about shipping and how it matters and all that stuff.
They're financially or supported. They can dominate the games industry. The only question is if they'll ever figure that out. And maybe, just maybe, Obsidian is the key.
Okay, Obsidian is definitely not the fucking key. It is not the key. Like, okay, at this point, that was a little shillery at the end, but that's whatever. She's part of the industry. I get it. They are not the key. Obsidian is not the key. Okay, Avowed is not the key. Avowed did worse than Outer Worlds 1. I don't think that's the case at all. Right? Like if we see Outer Worlds 2 do amazing numbers, then that's going to be different, right? And I also think that Outer Worlds is going to be handled from a marketing perspective with kids gloves. I think it's going to be handled a lot safer. I think people are going to shut up regarding the developers, and I don't think they're going to say anything controversial. I think there's not going to be another Matt Hansen situation that's going to happen. So, and I think by all of that going down, I think that's going to help the game do better compared to Avowed. They could have did better if it wasn't for Matt Hansen. Let's be real. I think there was a lot of sales that were left on the table because Matt Hansen opened his fucking mouth. That's what I genuinely believe. And people could try to be like, "Oh, that's not true." All you want. Telling you right now, I genuinely believe that. We're talking probably another 10 to maybe 15,000 concurrent players on Steam, all because Matt Hansen opened his fucking mouth. So we'll see what ends up happening. But considering Obsidian's history, especially with Avowed and how the developers are, I'm not exactly very hopeful for Outer Worlds 2. I felt like Outer Worlds 1 was extremely mid, just like Avowed. Although it was slightly better, I would give it probably, instead of a 5 out of 10, I would probably give it a 6, just because I like the locations. I thought the locations in the world building was pretty damn nice. But I'm also a little bit more lenient towards sci-fi because I like sci-fi. So again, it's just, but overall, it's like it was fucking mid, bro. It's like I don't want to call it Temu Fallout, but that's basically that's kind of like what it was. It was Temu Fallout. But the thing is, you could get the game for really cheap. You could get the game for like $5. So it's kind of like whatever. But okay, anyway, that's it for this video, guys. Shout out to Laura Fryer. Again, I like her videos, but I do think that she has that kind of mindset of like, well, as long as everybody tried their best, like you ever met somebody like that? It's usually women that are like that. No offense to the women in the chat. That's just the truth of it.